Okay, hey guys, I'm Ivory Hecker and this is Allie Levine.
Oh, hi guys. I'm so excited. It's gonna be fun.
Yes, we are doing a little chat on how to heal your nervous system. Okay, that has to do with mental health. And both of us are kind of diving into that topic. Now, Allie, I have your bio here. You're a world renowned celebrity stylist, sought after TV and media personality, from dressing the most famous people in Hollywood and public figures around the world. In 2020, Allie started her own personal inner journey and became a certified breathwork facilitator and coach. She's now a celebrity conscious stylist, sought after media personality, author, healer, and known for the deep work of embodiment and transformation.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to be here. And Ivy, I'm going to introduce you with your beautiful bio. So, Ivory Hecker is an independent journalist and news analyst who spent 9 years as a TV news reporter and anchor. And in 2021, she went viral for calling out her employer, Fox Corp Live, on air after witnessing the suppression of truth and the deception of her viewers. She now dedicates her time to shining light on issues the media lies about or suppresses, and she has a broadcast journalism degree from Syracuse University. And guys, Ivy and I connected back in 2020, actually, just to bring you back to a little backstory. I had, seen her speak out. I had been following some of the stuff with Project Veritas, and I thought it was really amazing, Ivy, how much you really spoke your truth. I know that was not easy for you, as it never is when you're speaking from the heart, but you're going against a narrative, or in your case, a big corporation, and a lot, that was part of your world. And you spoke the truth. You spoke what was on your heart and what you knew to be true to help others and really liberate others. I mean, the truth sets us free, right? And you did that. And I just remember watching you and being so inspired and being like, wow, there was something about you. And I have to tell you, like, in my going back to like my styling background, I always knew I had gifts when it came to the fashion world. But as I got like more and more my spiritual journey, I started realizing I could actually see people's auras, and I would see colors, and I would see how color could affect people and colors they'd wear and the frequency. And so when you spoke your truth, I want to let you know, I saw this like beautiful, like pink, like reddish color around you. And it was like this fiery passion, like, but compassionate color. And I just felt this frequency of just like true truth. And I'm actually seeing it around you right now again. And like this just real, like, not just a light about you, but there's just this like potent truth within you. And it's why everyone like responded so beautifully and like received it. And you set people free in that moment, and obviously have continued to. And, we all have, I believe, these different spiritual gifts. And sometimes it just takes time to allow us to come back to who we truly are authentically. And I know we're going to get into the nervous system and everything, but that, for me, that journey to the nervous system really taught me that, and taught me how I was a sovereign being, and taught me how God really created me to be, and not the noise and the ego. And honestly, what I had gotten wrapped up in as a celebrity stylist, when I first got involved in styling and in fashion in general, I did it because I loved helping people transform. And I loved watching people feel so good in their clothing. But over time, between, just being in Hollywood and honestly the programming that's there and everything that you can get wrapped up in, I just kind of became like a victim to my circumstances, and I like fell too much into caring about what everyone thought about me, how I was, going to show up, what I was going to do, and to my detriment, honestly, to like my health detriment, to my mental well-being, to the point where I think honestly God had had enough and decided to shake up my life.
Wow, I was going to ask because this world of celebrities is so superficial, and you hear many of them, speaking about the emptiness they feel. I mean, Matthew Perry having everything and then dying with that. It turns out he had an alcohol addiction all the time. And
Mhm.
I was just, when we talk about our nervous systems being shot, it's a lot of times because we are seeking something outside of ourselves to try to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think that I would imagine that's the case in
Absolutely.
Hollywood.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously I'm, was nowhere near where, Matthew Perry was, but I was around a lot of A-listers, I was around a lot of big, celebrities. They were my clients, and when I first started, I was just working with them and I was just honored to work with them. But I think over time I got swept up. You're hopping flights, you're going to parties, you're going all over the place, you're doing things maybe you shouldn't be doing. You're in the mix of it all. You're drinking the Kool-Aid, as I like to say, of Hollywood. And you don't realize, like, at least for me, I lost myself. I had no idea who I was, what I was doing. I wasn't coming home to like spend time with my husband at night. I was staying out at red carpet events till 1 a.m, not doing anything like I shouldn't be doing, but I just wasn't home present for my husband. And I wanted to be, in the mix so badly that I was like sacrificing my personal life and my, actual like happiness to make someone else happy and to be around that client because they wanted me to be there till 1 a.m just for their own ego, or they wanted me to, be around to make sure that they still looked fabulous. And in my mind, well, that was the most, important thing, like was the materials, right? Of like, I need to make sure that this is, perfect and, they look great and they feel great. And I didn't care about what I felt like or what I was going through. And it was all about them. And, I think in Hollywood, it's really easy to get swept up in that. You're really pushed into the materials, really pushed into the fame. I mean, Matthew Perry said it in his documentary, fame was not the answer. And I can wholeheartedly agree with that. Is like I was searching and searching and searching for the next dopamine hit, the next high. Okay, this client got on, this cover of this magazine. This client, was featured here for best dress. And I was hitting all those milestones, but I was like, not feeling fulfilled in my soul. And I just couldn't understand it because at first it was like, yes, yes, yes. It's like dopamine hit after each dopamine hit. And honestly, talk about the nervous system, my nervous system was in overdrive chronic stress, which I didn't recognize till years later. That was actually a trauma response from like not allowing myself to, actually feel what I was feeling. I was putting myself in overdrive and it just became this like crazy cycle of like fight, flight, or freeze over and over and over again that became my norm. And I actually have to be honest, I think most people out there, just because of our world, they are in that state of being and they just don't even realize it and it becomes normal.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so you had me on your podcast, which is coming up in a little bit,
Yeah.
and we ended up going right into this of my fight, flight, or freeze, and the fact that when I called out Fox Live on air, that was actually traumatic for me.
Of course it
That
was.
was
Yeah.
and like people, but so many people didn't realize that, and you know, and part of finding happiness is also being okay with being misunderstood. And so
Mhm.
when you're misunderstood on a larger scale because you just went viral, you have to be okay with that too. And so it
Absolutely.
really touched me. I mean, that meant so much to me what you said in the beginning about seeing my aura because it makes me feel very understood, which is very healing, to feel understood.
Yeah.
Um, the basically, which harkens back to the feeling of belonging, which can give you a peace in your nervous system. But honestly, I'm trying to navigate what works for healing your nervous system as well. And I know relationships do play into that a lot.
Mhm.
What do you think can really heal someone's nervous system?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and it's going back to what you were saying when you were on Awakening with Allie, my podcast that's coming out in the coming weeks, and we talked about how you're still kind of still processing how you spoke your truth because in that moment, it happened so quickly and then your life kind of snowballed from there. And now it's like a few years later and you're starting to actually like really feel in your nervous system and feel in your body what this feels like. And you're recognizing like, oh, that was traumatic for me to go through all that. And that's the thing. A lot of it, many times when we go through these experiences, we don't recognize in that moment that it's traumatic. We don't recognize that the body is in fight, flight, or freeze. We just keep going. And then all of a sudden, some point in our life, we start to recognize, oh, wow, something is feeling off. I'm feeling, really overwhelmed, or I'm, super upset about something, or really tired. And the reason that is because your body is trying to let and a signal, I've been holding this and I need to release it, And so this goes into the healing of the nervous system is that we start to experience and feel into the body. And this is somatic work. Soma means body. And when you get into the body and you start to listen to your body, which I love to say is our divine channel, our messenger, we start to recognize it's sending us signals and saying, I need rest. Like so many times people will say, I'm so tired and I'll just have 5 more cups of coffee. But your body is begging you to rest. Your body's begging you to allow it to rest so it can release what's going on. And this is why we see ailments and disease. It's disconnection from the body. It's truly, a disalignment and what's going on. And then it's manifesting in the physical. And our emotions, I truly believe, are energy in motion. We are, energetic beings. We are souls in this physical flesh. And when you understand that and understand that everything is energy, your emotions play a huge part in that. So when you start talking about healing the nervous system, it's first just understanding like who you truly are, and that your body does have to work in the mind body spirit capacity, and it can't be separated. So once you start to understand that and you understand that truth, you can start to dig in deeper and say, not even just what am I feeling, but where am I feeling it in the body? I always tell my clients, and I do this with myself consistently, is I take a body scan of like, where am I feeling this emotion that I'm experiencing right now? Where am I feeling it in the body? Because then I can start to understand, is it in the lower parts of my body? Is it, more in my heart? I can start to understand really where I'm feeling it, so we can start to connect it to like what does it actually go back to? Where did this begin? And then what I love to do with my clients is breath work, as you mentioned, as a certified breathwork facilitator and coach. I coach you through how to consciously breathe. And when I say consciously breathe, I mean that most of us are breathing, just quick breathing, shallow breathing, mostly from the mouth. We're not bringing in oxygen into the body. And when you do breath work, you're breathing through your nose and through your mouth, or just the nose, and you're using slow exercises to calm your nervous system. And you move your nervous system out of what is known as sympathetic nervous system. And basically what the sympathetic is the fight, flight, or freeze that we spoke to. It's the overdrive. It's the fact that it doesn't know how to rest. And you move yourself back into parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest state, which is known as homeostasis. And that is when we are breathing deep into the belly, into the chest, and out. And we are allowing that flow, because we're meant to allow the oxygen to actually flow through us and the body to move and flow the emotions versus getting stagnant and stuck and tight. And that is where the trauma begins in the body and where we store it. And we're learning more and more now too that the body is actually holding our fascia, our cells, everything is holding these emotions in the body. So until you actually allow yourself to heal it and release it, you could tell yourself all the stories in the world, but the body is holding it until it's actually gone.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, so I feel like let's like do a real life example. Take me as the
Yeah,
guinea pig. Okay,
sure.
so I feel like I do feel a lot of tension in my heart area.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Your
feel
heart space.
anxiety there like fairly
Mm-hmm.
often. So how do I get that out through breathing?
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
do a short practice.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, that's really common where because in your heart space, is so much of, your truth and your resonance of who we are. I mean, our heart alone, I'm learning this as I'm studying more and more too. Our heart alone has its own frequency. We're seeing this in heart math, we're seeing this in real science. Like our heart emanates way more than even like, our brain is going on. So if you're feeling that anxiety in your heart space and it's essentially feeling trapped, you're probably feeling it even deeper than you're realizing, and it's really taking you over. So the first thing I would say is to first really just get centered, in your space. And I know this can be hard for a lot of people, and this is why for me breath work really changed my life, because I love meditation. I meditate every day, but as someone who couldn't meditate in the beginning of my spiritual journey, being able to do breath work and get deep in the body allowed me then to be quiet and still, to be able to move into meditation and move into other modalities that were helping me. So
Mm.
first, yeah, because a lot of times people will say, I try to get quiet, I try to get still, and they can't. And it's like, I get that, because I was that person for so long and I didn't know how to get still or get quiet. And then I started actually, learning breath work and understanding how deep breathing would bring me to a higher state of consciousness. And then I was able to get into a meditative state. So the first thing I would say to you is, since you're aware, awareness is first, awareness is key. So since you're aware that it's in your heart space, what we're going to do is just going to like drop your shoulders. We'll do a little breathing exercise. Okay. Yeah. So you roll your shoulders back, stretch out, just let your body calm. Take a natural deep breath and release. Yeah. Take one more natural deep breath and release. So I want you to just take another scan of your body. Adjust as you're centered. Just scan your body and feel wherever there might be discomfort, wherever there might be tension, whatever you're feeling right now. I know you've identified your heart space, but I just want you to feel into your body as it's more centered and still now. And as you're just feeling that, just start to send that part of your body more love. So if it's your heart, send it way more love. And just start to envision that you're sending it more love. And as you do that, we're going to start to breathe. And I want you to just breathe in your nose and out your mouth like an O. Drop your shoulders deep into the nose, out your mouth like an O. Again, deep into the nose, out your mouth like an O. And you're going to continue this as I'm going to talk about. Since you mentioned your heart space, I want you just to imagine that love that you're pouring in. So as you breathe into your nose, I'm breathing in more love and more peace to myself and my body. And as you're breathing out, I want you to release what you spoke to, what you believe is the anxiety. It's the tension in your heart. It's the tension you're holding in your body. And just release that unconsciously and consciously out your mouth. Breathing in more love and more peace. And releasing unconsciously or consciously the anxiety, the holding, the blocks in the body. And as you're breathing, I just want you to really concentrate on bringing that breath into the heart. Since you've identified the heart space, as you breathe deeper into the nose and release out the mouth, really concentrate that you're bringing more oxygen into the body and really bringing it into the heart space, visualizing that you're allowing your heart to open up even more, that it's more safe, it's more open to receive. And anyone watching can do this with any part of their body, anything that they're going through, that they're experiencing, breathing more oxygen into the body, breathing more of that intention into that space of what they're needing. And so into our heart space, which is our highest frequency, which is the highest piece of us and our love, breathing more love into that space and releasing out the anxiety, the blocks, unconsciously or consciously trusting that the body is moving it out for us. Continuing in your nose, out your mouth like an O. Again, in your nose, out your mouth like an O. This time, I want you to breathe into your nose. I want you to pull it up like you're pulling from the bottom of your feet all the way to the top of your head, almost like you're sucking up through a straw, taking your breath all the way up, pulling it all the way to the top, and just holding it at the top now. Holding it for as long as you can, feeling the buildup in the body, and just envisioning that love, this beautiful, your heart space, this beautiful peace, this love, holding it, allowing this expansion, and feeling it burst within you like the oxygen that you've brought in. And then when you're ready, letting out a deep release. And then slowly bringing yourself back. And of course, that's a very simple, soft exercise. I would continue that for the next 3, 5, 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be long for the body to start to feel safe and receive, and for your breath to really take over, and for you to exit out of your mind.
That's beautiful. That I already feel peace and like flow in my body. So that's
Yeah.
good.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing, like, that alone is how you start to retrain and regulate your nervous system, because a lot of people don't feel, unfortunately, safe in their bodies, and I understand that. Society has done that to us, relationships, generational trauma, ancestry. There's so much of our history, I believe, in our DNA that sometimes shows up and we don't even know, that it's even ours, and it is, but it's not necessarily our present, reality. And so we need to move it out of the body for us to step into, our highest self. And so when we allow ourselves to breathe deeply like that and consciously breathe, we're actually changing, the neural pathways, in our brain. And, for a while, I feel like we were told, you can't change who you are. You just are who you are, and those are your patterns. But now we're really realizing that that's not true. That's actually a bunch of BS. And the truth is that you can change it with intention, with practice. And this is where the breath really gets to be so powerful, because the more you do this deep breathing, what happens is the neuroreceptors in the back of your brain actually start to shut off within a few minutes. And when they deactivate and shut off, the noise, the stories, the ego that was taking over essentially quiets and is gone. And as we continue to bring more oxygen flow into the body, this is what allows us to then start to move through the delta, theta, gamma waves, which is what happens in meditation. This is what a lot of people will call enlightenment. And so as we move through these different waves, we're able to start to experience the actual enlightened state, which to me is honestly like the state of being with God. It's like when you're enthusiastic about something, which in theos means creation with God. When we get into that actual frontal lobe and allow the creation of who we truly are, we can start to access exactly what God made us to be. And we recognize that everything else is stories, it's patterns, it's holdings that aren't ours. And we can step into our greatness, into who we authentically are. I like to say to people, you come home to yourself through the breath. It's not about the fact that you're not you. You're just finally pulling back all the layers and getting to the core of who you truly were divinely made to be when everything else quiets down. And when you make this a practice in your life every day, which I have now for almost 3.5 years, your life is forever changed. And you look at yourself and you don't even recognize who you were yesterday.
Wow. I love that. So you have an app for breath work,
Yeah.
breathe and be.
Just the letter B. Yeah.
So I just downloaded the app this week. Now I tried the meditation on there, the breath work. But she has all kinds of little ones where you go like you focus on breathing out.
Yes.
And
Yes.
actually, I that kind of breath work I think I get the most out of because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that one was about clearing the chaos.
Clearing. Yes.
And I did these breaths in yoga class back in 2019 when I was doing huge self-help work. And
Yes.
you literally feel emotions like that were stored within your body release
Yes, you do.
through your throat.
Yes.
And but
Absolutely.
just doing it for a few minutes on your app, I felt like the buzzing energy and like especially in my head actually when I did that, which was a similar feeling, guys, to going to a chiropractor. Just through
Yes.
breathing. It was
I love
crazy.
that. Yeah, but it's true, because well, think about it, right? I love chiropractic. I go with a chiropractor all the time. And think about it, the chiropractor like is resetting your entire system, right? As they're cracking you and they're, realigning your meridians. I mean, when we're breathing, you're realigning your entire body. You're getting, deep into the body and letting the body release what it needs to release. It's like we're just in misalignment. There's nothing, wrong with us. Things are just not aligned because there's stories around us, there's stress, there's chaos. I mean, look at the world. How can you not be right now? But I really believe it's like the more you do the inner work, the more you allow yourself to get quiet, the more that you can take back your peace. And then I also believe, on a major collective scale, the more we do this for ourselves, the more we ripple it out to everyone else, because we're all a frequency and we're all affecting each other. We know we all affect each other as energy. So the more we change our heart space, we change our frequency, the more we're going to change everyone else's frequency. And we'll just imagine if everybody in the world did breath work, what the world would look like right now.
Yes. Amazing. So I think in addition to things like breath work, changing your belief system is so key to healing your nervous
Yes.
system too,
Oh, yes.
which when you set an intention to, I'm going to stop believing this thing that defeats me and start believing something that empowers me. When you're
Yes.
when you're working on shifting that belief system while doing healing modalities like breath work, you can really
Absolutely.
build the momentum
Yes, you
in a
can.
positive direction.
And I love that you brought that up, Ivy, because so for me, like meditation for me, like long backstory short, after we talked about, I was a celebrity stylist, I had a lot of things go on, it really was my health that first took me on this journey. And when I speak to my health, for me, I went through very heavy postpartum depression and anxiety when I had my first daughter almost 6 years ago. And that was like really traumatic for me. I had a very traumatic birth. I wanted to have a natural birth. I wound up in a C-section after 42 hours. And you want to talk about feeling disconnected from your body. Oh, that birth was it was just trauma. It was just straight trauma from, the moment it started to the moment it ended. And afterwards, I went through very pretty heavy postpartum depression and then anxiety. And through that, journey of health and understanding that so much that unearthed during that birth was actually not the birth. It was everything I had suppressed in my life of, grief I hadn't dealt with and family stuff and, toxic relationships and work and all these just different things my body had been holding, and then essentially all of that unearthed. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that when we do go through a traumatic situation, it will unearth things that we've been suppressing and telling ourselves that we're totally fine about or we've moved on from. And we've convinced the brain that that's the case. But again, then the body releases it, like you spoke to so beautifully in yoga, when you're going through and you're doing these, deep breaths, and then you actually feel the emotions move through you and move out of you. And I say that because when I first went on my health journey, it was meditation for me at first that really started to ground me. And honestly, I was able to find God again. I really, to be quite honest, lost kind of my faith in God for many years. I had a lot of religious trauma. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I didn't know like who God was. Like I was so fearful and I felt so judged and shamed by God and decisions I had made that I just felt like there's no way that, God could love me or I could, be, anything that, God wants me to be. So I'm just going to not worry about it and just go about my life. And my life became total chaos. And that doesn't surprise me at all because, I think when you remove God from it, that does happen. And so then as I went through my journey of finding God again in a whole new way of where meditation centered me and showed me that, God was love. When you talk about, changing the narrative of like your truths and of what you've been told and what you've believed. I think that also can be traumatic too, because it's like, wait, I thought everything I learned, in my Catholic school was the truth. And, I thought that this is, what it was and God judges me and, all these things. And then you recognize for yourself that that's not true. And when I started doing meditation, that's really when I started feeling and hearing God speak to me and telling me how much, he loved me and how much, I deserved and that I was, not allowing myself to be loved and not allowing myself to be seen and felt. It was like, wait, God is love. How is that possible? It was such a mind shift for me, and I think you speaking to the fact of like, oh, these limiting beliefs, oh, these stories of like, I can't do it. It's not true. And it's not what, God is. God, literally is of abundance for us and, love and sovereignty and freedom. And we have to recognize like, I do have to retrain myself and see myself for who I truly am as this divine being. And so meditation was the start for me. But then to be quite vulnerable, like when 2020 happened and I had kind of gone through a massive healing from that birth and everything that had happened in postpartum depression, and I felt like I found a new version of myself and started to heal. When 2020 came, to be honest, everything went out the window. Like meditation stopped working, yoga stopped working, like all my modalities stopped working. And
Same.
oh my God, can we talk about what a mind F that is? Like when everything you think is like, you're like, what is happening? Why is nothing working? Like, this was working and now it doesn't work. That I lost my ever loving mind. And I was pregnant with my second daughter at the time. And I was just like,
Wow.
how is it not working?
Right. Yeah, so I think sometimes your nervous system can get overstressed to a point where meditation is just not enough because
It's not enough. The mindset work is not enough.
there's like a war happening in your body and you
Yes.
slow down to meditate and you're like, I'm in agony and this isn't,
Right.
I'm gonna blow a gasket. And so that happened because 2019, I reached such a beautiful place of like consistent bliss. Like I must have found enlightenment. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
2020, like my whole world gets turned upside down. And I couldn't meditate anymore. Same thing.
Mhm.
And so I went back to working out, which I would still recommend. Like if you can't sit still and feel peace start to wash over
Yeah.
you, then get out there and
Oh, yeah, and
wrestle
get
the
in
demons out of
nature.
yourself
Yes.
by
Yes.
uh lifting the heaviest weights you can, running as hard as you can.
Yeah.
That's what I would do, and that I think that's also a way to find peace in your nervous system. You
Yeah,
get
well, and to
all the
get it
stress
out of
out.
the body.
Exercise.
Absolutely. Right, exactly. Get it out of the body, get the stress out of the body, get the emotions out of the body, move the body. I mean, I think that's the first thing is just moving the body, like allowing yourself, if you can't sit still and you can't, move through it and move the emotions out, going out into nature, going to do a workout, going for a hike, being with your animals, if you have, a dog to go take on a walk, like moving the body. If you're a parent, go out with your kids and play and, just move your body and have fun. Like that's a huge way to heal and retrain and regulate the nervous system. And, I think too, like what you said, when you're having a war inside your body, it's true. That's exactly what's going on. It's like, you don't know what to do. You don't know what's happening. And you know that nothing is working. And the body feels like it's almost working against you. But the body's actually not working against you. The body is doing its best to try to move you out of survival mode and get it out of the body. But it feels like a war to you because your body's saying, hey, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to send you a signal and tell you what to do, but you're not listening to me per usual, right? It's like most of us, you don't have energy. Oh, I'll go get, more coffee, or I'll take an energy drink, or, I'm stressed out. Let me take a pill. And this is not to judge anyone. This is the way society has essentially programmed us to be. But I think we're all starting to learn now that these are all band-aids. These are all quick fixes that don't actually work. And we have to actually listen to our body for the divine messenger that it is and figure out what actually is going to work to move us through and actually heal. Because I always say we have to feel it to heal it. And then that allows the shift. And so, going back to 2020 and meditation not working, all my modalities of journaling and gratitude lists and mirror affirmations and everything, nothing was working. And I was like, looking, I remember standing in the mirror, Ivy, and being like, you're so beautiful. And like crying. It was like, what is wrong with me? It was I was like losing my mind. I really was. I was like losing my mind. I'm like, I'm standing here in the mirror. Usually, like, this is something that calms me. It makes me like feel good. And I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm, pregnant. I'm losing my mind. Everybody in their, mother's calling me and is like, what are you going to do? You're having a baby during, COVID. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm losing my mind. Like, I'm trying to like stay centered. Nothing's working, and honestly, I was going to a really dark place really fast. Like my, depression and my anxiety was taking over very quickly. And I remember getting in the bathtub because for me, water is very calming. And, I'm a Cancer sun, for those that, follow us, signs.
Ooh, that's big.
Yeah. So like, water is
That's
big
the
for
most
me.
emotional sign in the zodiac, you
Oh
guys.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Emotions hit Cancers like a ton of bricks.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and yeah, and then your moon is like ruled by, is your like big, emotional piece, and I'm a Taurus moon, so then you add in Taurus, so I have a lot of emotions going on, to say the least. And so, it was like I was just like losing it. And water for me is always healing. It's always very cleansing. It's probably why I wanted to have a water birth with my first daughter that wound up in the C-section. Like I always felt calm in water. And so I got in the bathtub and I just started praying, to be honest. And I was just down on my hands and knees, which is not something I do, to be quite honest, very often. I probably should, but I just don't. And I was down on my hands and knees and I was just crying. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I thought I had healed. I thought I was in a better place. And like, now why am I 10 times darker than I was back in 2018? Like, what is happening? And I just heard God say, like, I'm going to send you help. Like, you have to be open to it. And I got back on my social media the next day and I was just posting about what I was going through and how I was struggling. And this guy reached out to me on Instagram and was like, "Hey, have you ever tried breath work?" And I was like, I mean, I've done it a couple times, but I've never really like experienced it, in a deep way. But like, yeah, it was cool. And he's like, "No, have you like done like a full on breathwork session, like where you release your emotions and your traumas that are in the body?" And I was like, No. And he was like, "You need to do that." And I was just like, all right. And I honestly was in such a place of surrender and just losing my mind. And I really felt like it could possibly have been a sign that, like I believe God sends different people in different people's lives and, divine opportunities. And I felt like there was a message for me behind that. So I started researching it a little bit more and started diving into how breathwork might be able to help me. And I, read a lot of stories about how trauma was released and how people's, lives were changed. And I thought, well, hey, nothing else is working and I'm still losing my ever loving mind. So let me give it a shot. Why not? So I reached back out. I did this session with this guy, Mac, and it changed my life. It truly, I cannot even explain like what that hour of my life was like. It was like I went in with a dark tunnel and I came out and it was literally like God was on the other side. Like it was beautiful. And I recognized in that hour of breathing that I had so much of my trauma come up from the birth, from my first birth, that I thought I processed that I hadn't. I had, even more grief that I hadn't dealt with from my grandmother's loss, like all these different things on top of trauma that was happening in 2020 for, speaking out and speaking my truth. And that's a whole nother conversation. And so it was just like everything was in my body, everything was being held. And when he guided me through different exercises to breathe deep and to release, by the time I was done after that hour, how you said about yoga with it coming out, that was exactly how it felt. It was like I was crying in the most like beautiful way of like happy, safe release. And my body felt so much lighter. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I literally can breathe again. And from then on, I started doing sessions like once a week to just really start to heal and regulate and retrain my nervous system. And then when I wasn't doing the sessions, I was doing my own, small exercises on my own just to continuously regulate every day. Because to be quite honest, because everything was so crazy in 2020 and California was nuts where I was living at the time, it was fear porn 24/7. And I was going to the doctor's office because I was pregnant. So I was around people 24/7 that were putting fear back into me. So I had to constantly get back into the breathing exercises to find peace and to get back into faith, and it wasn't until the end of basically that birth, that when I gave birth to my second daughter in the hospital, that breathwork really changed my life. And I'll share a really quick story, but basically I wanted to have a VBAC, which for those that don't know is a vaginal birth after a C-section. And I was already told that possibly couldn't happen just because of the state of the world. And a lot of doctors will just tell you another truth, that another lie that's not true, that it's just something that can't happen, but it can happen. And I've done it, and I can tell you it can happen when you have a C-section. You absolutely can have vaginal birth after a C-section. And actually 85% of women actually do it. It's like not that uncommon, just our society loves to tell us that it is.
Oh,
So
wow. Because
yeah,
I thought the same thing, that you can't do that. So
yeah,
that's
because it's
wonderful.
one of those lies that they tell you, like, "Oh, there's just no way." And you know why? Because it's more money to have C-sections. It's like triple the money to have a C-section. And I hate to say that, but it's true. When you do the research, you start to see like a vaginal birth is like $6,000 to $8,000 max, and is in a C-section, when you add in all the interventions and the medications and everything, it ends up being like $30,000 to $50,000 or more. So they get to charge way more to insurance and do all the things, and yeah, it's a whole cascade of garbage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because
Yeah.
a good friend of mine, when she gave birth, she did not want a C-section. Once
Mhm.
she's in there with the doctor's like, "Sorry, your hips
Yep.
are the wrong size. The
Not
baby
true.
can't fit
Not
through."
true. Not true.
And then basically against her will, they did a C-section.
This is what they do.
And
Mhm.
now to know that money's involved, ooh, that's dirty.
Oh, isn't that so dirty? Oh, yeah, just like everything else that you speak to, it's, it's all money. It is. It's like you follow our medical system and you go through, and not to say, of course, there's not good doctors out there, because of course there are, but the system, the way they have it in play, is that everything is making money. I mean, one of the best movies I ever watched was The Business of Being Born. If anyone's watching this and you haven't watched it, go watch it. You should watch it. It's all about how they took midwives out of the birth, centers, how they created hospitals, how they put doctors in white coats, what they do to women, and how they made it an entire business, and how they took it over and literally made it a, $1 billion plus, chain for them to be able to just keep producing more and more money. And of course, C-sections are needed when there's an actual emergency. Like, I'm not saying that they can't not happen, but the rate of our C-sections, especially in the United States, I think we're up to almost like 35% now. Like, we're way past where we're supposed to be when it comes to women giving birth. You're supposed to have, God created you to have a vaginal birth. There's a reason that, you're created the way you're created. So the fact that our percentage of women are having them so much more shows you that our system is telling, just like your friends, sadly, hey, you have to do this. You have to have this. You don't have a choice. And that's not usually not the case. And this whole lie of like your hips are too small, it's not true. Like, it's not true. I'm 5 foot. I birthed a 9-pound baby, an 8-pound baby. Like, it's not true. Like, and they love to tell us, like, again, that our bodies are broken. Like, we're not divinely made. Like, we can't do this. The birth is an emergency. And it's like, yeah, when you bring in all the fear and you intervene and you create all the problems in your system, it's no longer natural. But the way we're designed to be and the way we're divinely made, it is natural. Like, I mean, look, I had a C-section, my first daughter, a VBAC with my second in the hospital, and a home birth with my son back in 2022 here in Tennessee. And I would have never thought in a million years that I could have a home birth. And I did. And I'm telling anyone watching, like, you can too. Like, I'm not special. You just have to, again, change your beliefs and find the right people to advocate for you and teach you and learn to trust your body. And this is, again, going back to the body. It's retraining your nervous system and regulating it, because the more I did this work, the more I started to believe and change, and actually, change the neurons and what was going on my neural pathways to my beliefs. And when you fire and rewire, guess what? It actually changes in the brain, and it changes the way your body operates, because it's receiving that. The signals are happening, and it's like, oh, she's no longer the same person. It's literally a new person that you've created. And so going back to 2020 and having Arlie in the hospital, at the end, when I was going for my VBAC, she got stuck at the end. And my doctor was like, all right, if she gets stuck again, we're going to have a C-section. And in my mind, I was like, oh, no, no, no. My hell or high water, am I doing a C-section? Like, I came this far. I've gotten this far. Like, there's no way in my mindset work and this journey and everything I've done, I know I can do it. I'm not going to let this stop me. And the fear really tried to come in, and I looked at my husband and I said, Justin, I need my, ear pods to put in so I could listen to a breathwork meditation I had on my phone that I listened to every night. It was like a fear releasing meditation with breathwork. And I was like, I need to listen to it right now in this moment. And I started deeply breathing, similar to what we were just doing here, and got really concentrated in my body. And the next thing I knew, I swear I still don't to this day know how to describe what happened, because I guess you would say it was an out of body experience, because I started to see myself above my body in the hospital. This might sound weird, but I swear. And I could like see myself like going through the birthing process, but I wasn't there, and I was breathing deeply. I really felt like I was with like God and my angels. I saw beautiful colors like pinks and purples and just like beautiful angelic colors. I felt so safe. I felt so held. I no longer was in this like fight or fleas, this like tension that was going on in my body. And next thing I knew, I heard my doctor say, okay, I'm grabbing the vacuum and you're going to push as hard as you can. And if this doesn't work, that's it. And I just remember deeply breathing and praying, and I was still out of body, but I could see what was happening. And it was like this simultaneous like thing going on. And next thing I knew, there she was on my chest, and I was back in my body, and I was hysterical crying. My husband's jaw was literally on the floor, and we were looking at each other in disbelief. And I was like, holy shit, I did it. Like, I couldn't believe it. And it was the most beautiful out of body experience I'd ever had, but it showed me that breath work brought me there, that I actually allowed myself to be regulated, that in such a crazy time of the world and so much fear, that I could have so much peace and achieve a VBAC it was life changing. And that was when I got certified, because I was like, if I can do this, and this is what breath work can do and be a part of this retraining and regulating our nervous system, then I have to bring this to everybody, because everybody has to have this tool. If they choose to use it or not, that's up to them, but they need to at least know about it and know the story of how it works.
Wow, that's incredible. That is an amazing story.
Thank
Well,
you.
I know several of my family members' breathwork's been so healing. So me and my siblings, we lost my dad in 2020. My dad was killed in an accident, and
Oh, I'm so
my little
sorry.
brother had to watch that happen
Oh.
and had to live with regrets of things he didn't say to his dad before losing him suddenly. And so my brother was always very like the skeptical of anything spiritual, but my sisters convinced him to go to breath work, and it was a powerful healing
Oh,
experience
I love
for
that.
him, where he had this powerful vision of meeting with my dad and cutting down a tree that had their problems in it, and it
Oh.
was just beautiful. And
Oh, I love that.
so
That's so beautiful.
he had a powerful healing experience with breath work, which, it's one of many modalities that I think, so 2019, I was trying all the modalities
Yeah.
so, cause I had gone early that year. I went through a breakup. I was cheated on for the first time, and I
Mm.
was just so shocked that I believe in extreme responsibility. So to me, I manifested a cheater. I
Mhm.
had a frequency of betrayal within myself. I was so
Mhm.
appalled at myself that I believed enough in betrayal to find myself in that sort of relationship. So I was like, it's time to glare myself in the mirror and clear out whatever's wrong within me. So I started all the healing modalities,
Mhm.
um, and shifting my belief system at the same time. I realized when you have a deep subconscious belief in betrayal, that you are looking at the world through this lens of like, that person over there is probably out to get me. Like,
Mm.
they don't have
Mhm.
my best interest. Something
Mhm.
with them there is gonna go wrong against me. I realized that I was having these very subtle beliefs that I wasn't even picking up on. And I
Yeah.
like, what if I can just shift my belief to say that stranger over there has my best interest. They would actually like to help me if they could. And,
Mhm.
we're secretly friends. We don't even know it yet, and
Yeah.
start to shift to a warm feeling about the people around you. And
Yeah.
when I started to look through this lens, I realized I could feel it within my heart that,
Mhm.
wow, I can feel a warmer shift within my heart when I say,
Your heart
I think
frequency.
I
Yeah.
I think maybe this person across the cafe actually thinks I'm great. They're actually
Mhm.
not thinking bad things under their breath about me. And, you
Yeah.
know, and so then you feel that shift like, well, that's confirmation that I was thinking the opposite the whole time. And you're only going to attract betrayal when you think other
That's right.
people are out to
Because
get you.
everything is energy, right? Going back to what we were saying about energy, it's like everything is energy. We all feel each other's energy. So it's like, exactly. And I love that you had the awareness, because that's like huge. I think, like, going back to the beginning of this with, like, regulating our nervous system and healing and all that, it really starts with your awareness. Like, you have to choose that you're going to make the consciousness shift. And then you can use these practices and the modalities to further that and to continue to change your life. But it really does begin with you saying, like you said, how did that come into my reality? Like, how did that happen? And I think a lot of us, don't want to see that and recognize that, like, we all have, some dark within us. We all have shadow work to do to better ourselves, to come in more and more into our own light and our own truth. And it can be really overwhelming sometimes to say, like, wow, why I had a cheater. Like, yeah, and the first thought I think is like, why did they cheat on me? But then, like you said, you had the awareness to, like, how did I actually allow that into my life? Like, that's what kind of the shift I went through with Hollywood. It was like, well, you put yourself there, but then I was like, wait, but how did I allow myself to become that? Like, how did that take me over? Like, how was I all of a sudden not even aware of who I was, that I was just doing whatever everyone else told me to do? And it was like, oh wow, I got to reflect on like where that began. And for me, I actually started realizing so much of it was like when I was a kid and not feeling, accepted, like, middle school and high school. Like I just like, was always someone who just wanted to do her own thing and be unique. And it was like, oh, why won't she just do what we want her to do? Or why won't she conform? And it went back to like all those old beliefs of like, you have to conform to have these, friends and to be loved. And, and it's like, oh, that's not true. Right. Cause like you said in the beginning, that your truth and understanding, you could be misunderstood and still very much be loved and be amazing and be you. And not everybody's going to understand you. And you could still feel seen for it and feel heard. And I feel like so many of us right now are experiencing that, where it's like it's scary and it's vulnerable to say, oh, I want to speak my truth, but I also want people to like me. It's like you kind of don't get to have both.
Yes, yeah, you have to have enough foundation of self-love, which comes with going back to belief in God. I've been soul searching about like what is going to give me peace, and it all goes
Mhm.
down to if you really believe in God, that God is your foundation of loving you unconditionally,
Mhm.
pouring into your life, that your fake beliefs are the only thing blocking that, then you can start to have the peace, unconditional peace, no matter what anyone thinks of you.
Unconditional. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
no matter, no, because you understand that God is not conditional, and you have to shift your belief system back to believing in the unconditionality of God,
Yeah,
unconditionality of
and how
love.
you're created to be, that you are, we're love and we return to love. That's how we're created, exactly. And it is unconditional. There is no conditioning. And I feel like this world has so many conditions that we feel like, that that's how it is. But you're right. When you find your foundation in God and you understand like who you actually are, it all shifts. But it does have to come back to that place of self love and self acceptance. And I think that for me, that's why breath work was just so powerful and continues to be. And why, even when you were saying when you were using my app, it's like you, there's something to me about the breath, and it makes sense because obviously within us. The God gave us, with this to literally survive. But what I recognize is when we move out of the survival of breathing, that we can move into thriving. And I believe it is the way that God divinely made us to receive. Because I think back to going back to having a baby, right? Anyone, who's had a baby and you watch a baby breathe, they're breathing for many years in a homeostasis. They're breathing into their belly, into the chest, and out. They're not breathing shallow like the rest of us in this world, because they're breathing the way God created them to breathe. So they're in true homeostasis. So they're in that self love, and they're not leaving that space until later in life when everything around them conditions them to think differently, right? It's like I read this story the other day and it really like touched my heart, of like this kid that went to a class and the teacher said, draw a flower. And the kid was so excited and they started drawing a flower with all these beautiful colors and leaves. And the teacher walked over and was like, oh, no, 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 draw the flower like this, and showed the flower that she drew. So the kid drew the flower like that. And the story continued on that like they went the next day to class and they asked him to draw something else. And the kid kept drawing all these things that were different than what the teacher asked them to draw. And finally, the kid went to another, I guess, like creative outlet, and they asked him to draw and said, draw whatever you want. And he sat there and he couldn't draw. And they were like, why won't you draw? And he's like, well, can you tell me what to draw? And I was like, wow, that's so our society of like, we feel like we have to do what everyone else is telling us instead of what actually feels right in our heart and in our body. And so when we go against our love and our truth inside of ourselves, it is a war inside of our body. It's a war inside of all of us, because we're fighting against the way we divinely are created, the way our foundation within us that God gives us to be. So it's like getting back to that and peeling back the layers and understanding that, mind, body, spirit is all connected. That is where we start to be able to find the ultimate peace and be able to actually resonate back to our own truth of like, oh, all of that was just a healing and I had to release. All of that was trauma that I, was holding in the body. But when I peel back the layers of like the onion of this healing, I could start to actually see who I am and recognize it, And so I think that like it's just giving yourself permission to say like,
Yes,
right? Like you said, like giving yourself
100%.
permission of like that may not be true. That belief I was told might actually not be true, or maybe I don't resonate it with it anymore, and I'm okay to change. We're meant to change in order to evolve. And like, how do I make those changes, and how do I become aware of myself and become aware of my patterns and my habits? Like, for
Yes.
me, when I start to do breath work and I am in a regulated state, I can start to see consciously what I'm doing. I'm no longer in a program of like, I get up, I make my drink, I'm just doing that. I'm like, no, I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm aware of how I'm acting. And because I'm aware of that reality, I can change my reality. It's when we stay in the programming and we just continue on this like chronic stress journey that we are not aware of what's going on. And if you're not aware, you can't make change.
Yes, that was my experience 2019, starting to peel back these onion layers to come
Mhm.
back to my true essence again. So the more that I meditated, which involved breath work,
Yeah.
breathing, focusing on my breath while meditating, um, doing yoga, doing Reiki, it was peeling back. It was taking out old emotional and ego identity layers
Yeah.
that said, you like to do this, Ivory, because we programmed you to like to do
Yeah.
this. And my Reiki
Exactly.
practitioner told me that once you've done this Reiki, you're going to realize that things like, oh, let's go out and party and drink is like, wait, suddenly it's like, wait, why am I doing that? I'm
Why
not
am I
actually
doing that?
wrong to do that. People told me I should sit by a bar and sip something that's going to screw up my mind, and that's
Mhm.
gonna fun, you
Right,
know.
and that's fun, and I'm gonna black out and not remember the next day, and, like, I'm gonna be excited about seriously, though, you're right, can I tell you, I went sober in 2020, and I haven't drank since, and people will say to me, like, when I go out, "How come you're not drinking?" And I'm like, "It just doesn't resonate for me anymore." And it's like, "Look, I'm not judging you that you're standing here having a drink, but, like, don't feel like I have to have a drink because you're feeling uncomfortable that you're drinking, like, you're making that choice, you go ahead." But I'm in a space where, like you said, like you start to really become aware of what you're doing and like what it's doing to you and your sacred vessel, to your body, like how you're feeling. And I think for me, it's like now, if I'm putting anything in my body, it's anything that's going to uplift my body, make my body feel better, strengthen my immune system, strengthen my gut health, like all the things that like actually make changes within the body and the brain, because like
Yeah.
that's going to make you be the most optimal, right? And so I love that you brought that up about drinking, because that was a big experience for me too, is like peeling back the layers and being like, oh, actually, I don't resonate with that anymore. And I think that's hard too, because when you pull back those layers and see the ego of you, of like the patterns that you were in the programs, and recognize like that's not actually who you are and what you wanted to be doing. For me, at least, it was like a mind F. I was like, wait, who am I? What do I like to
Yeah.
do? What am I into?
Well,
I
full
don't even
disclosure,
know.
I do still drink socially, but it's not I'm very conscious of like, well, my friends are doing this social gathering that
Yeah.
they want drinking involved, and I'm gonna participate with this friendship. But I do find myself now, now that the layers are coming off, it's like I want to gather a wholesome thing where maybe we're paddle boarding and there's can we do something out in nature that doesn't
Yeah,
involve alcohol? You become
totally.
aware of how um like why are we doing this and calling it fun when there's so much fun out in the beautiful world. But you start to come back to your true essence, and where you didn't, like your story where you didn't know what to color anywhere, suddenly you're
Mhm.
going back to your own creativity. And I became a songwriter that year, just out of like it was like the final layer was peeled off that was blocking my creativity. I never planned or tried to be a songwriter. Songs just started to pop out of my heart, and it was the most wild, like out of this world experience,
I love that.
feeling a feeling a song pop out. So that's and I did that, like I said, through doing a lot of reading and focusing and thought reprogramming
Yes.
to get rid of beliefs that were limiting me, that
What books
fake
did you
beliefs.
did you read? What books did you feel like were helpful for you?
The book Law of Attraction by
Yeah.
Esther and
Mhm,
Gary Hicks was
mhm.
really life changing. And actually, so this event in New York I spoke at recently, they asked that just on a whim while I was already in New York a few weeks ago, day of, they're like, Ivory, we talk about law of attraction versus Christianity. And I was like, oh, sure. And because I think that so many different people who are seeking God clash with each other and think each other's against each other. And what I've come to find as a Christian and a
Yeah.
seeker of peace is that people are speaking the same words
Yeah.
in different languages.
Yeah. I
And
tell
that
people all the
law of
time. I no,
so
I love
faith
that.
in the Bible
Yeah.
faith in the Bible is law of attraction. It's the
100%.
same thing.
Mhm.
And Hebrews 11 verse 1 uh explains what law of attraction is.
Right.
And so Christians hear law of attraction like, ooh, that's like something bad. No, it's literally the explanation of faith and what happens when you have faith.
Right.
So faith is the evidence of things not seen, Hebrews says.
Mhm.
So that means faith is the actual evidence. That means that thing immediately exists as soon as you have faith.
Right.
And you choose to believe something and boom, it
Right.
exists before you see it.
Exists.
Hebrews
Right.
11. That is the exact same explanation of law of attraction.
Yeah.
So in understanding, reading that book,
Yeah.
truly understanding faith, because growing up as a Christian, Christians hadn't driven that home to me enough. Like, oh, now I understand the Bible better. And now I understand the kingdom of God within me that Jesus was talking
Yeah.
about when he spoke straight to the Pharisees and said, the kingdom of God's within you.
Yep.
Pharisees, you're not receiving that. And so I started to build that faith foundation in 2019.
Okay.
That really shifted my belief system from limiting to expansive.
Mhm.
And while doing these modalities like Reiki, yoga,
Mhm.
meditation every day, to strip off the fake beliefs that were stored emotionally in my body, and it healed my nervous system. Then 2020, I got pummeled. I was like,
Like
oh,
most of us.
like, and with I had this brand new fragile foundation of faith, and I felt like it really got shaken up. So I'm rebuilding it now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I know we've gone over now. I wanted to keep this short, but I just wanted to give viewers a few different things, like from both of our experiences on like
Absolutely.
how we've healed our nervous system, and those we know have healed it. And I'll say, like, now that I'm re-healing it, because the past few years threw me for a loop.
Sure.
One modality that's extremely healing right now is service to others. Go
Yes. I
volunteer,
love that.
go help someone, even help someone who doesn't like you. Do something nice and do it in secret. Do not tell anyone about it. That's the magic. Go
Yeah.
help someone in secret and see
Service
how
to
you feel.
humanity. Yeah, no, I love that. It's true. Service to humanity. I mean, well, it's because it's emitting that love frequency that we spoke about. It's really truly that law of attraction. It's sending it out so it can be received, and then you receive it so much greater, and then you give it to someone else. And it's true, and it makes such a ripple effect. And I love that you also spoke to Ivy, like, of the faith. It's true. It's like faith is literally like, believing before you're seeing. And, it's funny, even with breath work, I've had so many Christians come to me and say, how could you say you believe in God when you do breath work? And I'm like, what do you mean? And
God
they're like,
breathed life into us. God is
right.
breath.
Right. Thank you. And like literally in Hebrew, going back to what you're saying, like, first the word soul is nepesh, and nepesh also means breath. It's the same meaning. And it's like, that's it. There it is again, right? It's like God is telling us this. It's a kingdom within. God is literally within us. I mean, it says it in the Bible too. Blessing or your curse is in the tongue. Like our words have power. Our words manifest. Like all these things are in the Bible. And it's so interesting. The religious portion of, Christianity and even other religions just follow like literally what it says word for word. And it's like, but no, that's not what it actually means. You're not peeling back the layers and understanding like how divinely you're created. So I love that you're speaking to the law of attraction and kind of pulling that band-aid off, because I feel like for Christianity, that's a big piece. And I have people come to me who say, well, I want to do breath work, but I don't want to go against my religion. And I'm like, go against your religion? What are you talking about? And they're like, well, because, like you're deeply breathing, you're opening portals. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm just like, honestly, my mind is blown. And I'm
So
like,
it's the belief. Yes, so many Christians has this belief in evil. They without knowing it, they've allowed the
they've
belief
allowed.
in
Yes,
bad. They're strengthening Satan. Okay,
correct.
by believing that Satan's portals are all over our body, and if
Mhm.
we breathe wrong, we're going to open Satan. And you've
Right.
got
You
to have
walk
more
into the
faith in
wrong
God.
yoga class and you're going to allow it. Right. Exactly. And it's like, no, this is why you have awareness. Like when you see this darkness come up, when you see these things happen, you, like you said, you change what you're doing. You make a change, you become conscious and you say, I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to give you that strength. We're all going to continue to have these limiting beliefs. We're going to have things come up. We're going to have, especially as we speak more and more of our truth, Satan and the darkness do not want that to happen. So you are going to have the limiting beliefs. You are going to have the noise, and you have to have the awareness to say, that's not true. The kingdom is within me. I am, a child of God, and I know how powerful I am, and I know what a bright light I am, and I can continue to shine. But it's like, you're right. It's like you have to really have the faith. You have to really understand that, like, this is who I am and everything else is noise. And that's why, like, for me, I think meditation and breath work and, the gratitude lists and, affirmations, like how you were saying, your different modalities really helped strengthen that. And I would just tell anyone who's, listening, it's like, just get curious, like just start trying any of the modalities that we shared and notice the shifts that go on in your life. It may take time and, you're going to have to be intentional about it, but you'll start to notice little by little the changes that are actually happening. And you'll start to recognize, like, oh, wait, I'm a happier person. I'm a more peaceful person. My body is at peace. And you'll start to recognize that things have actually shifted, right? Wouldn't you say? Like, it really is first the awareness, but then it's also the curiosity to allow yourself to move into that space and to continue to be curious and open of, like, oh, well, this happened. So what else great can happen? Oh, how much more goodness can happen? How much more can I pour into this, instead of, oh, something bad is going to happen, or, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. You continue to believe and have the faith that it's going to continue to move forward.
Yes, totally agree. Yeah. So doing physical practices along with working on shifting your mind can fortify a shift towards healing your nervous system. And on this topic of faith, the book God Heals by Steve Austin, I just read it and it is
Oh, I read that book too. It's
insanely good.
so good. It's so
So,
good.
oh my gosh, I'm going to read it again because it's like really rebuilding my foundation of faith that
Mhm.
God eroded over the past few years. So,
Yeah,
but
I love
anyway,
that.
guys, Allie has her app. You guys should check it out.
Yeah, it's called Breathe and Be, just BREATHE, and then and the letter B, because it's just all about being in your being and less in the doing. And yeah, you can download it for free on App Store and Google Play, so you can get started and just like get curious, and then you can subscribe to get all the different exercises that Ivy's talking about that she's used. That where I give you different affirmations and intentions to move you through that are like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then longer meditations if that's what you're
Yes.
looking for. Yeah,
Affirmations are wonderful. Those are about reprogramming your belief system.
yeah, your belief
So
system.
totally. And guys, follow my new YouTube, Health with Ivory on YouTube.
Yeah,
I
that's
will
so
be focusing
exciting.
on real
Congrats on
topics
that.
like
I
this.
love that. Yeah,
Yes.
and my YouTube's Allie Levine Design. All my socials are at Allie Levine Design, so make sure you're following there too. And my podcast, Awakening with Allie, which Ivy was on a few weeks ago, is coming out very soon. It's a very deep conversation kind of around this, but also her story and journey of sharing the truth and everything she's gone through. So you're definitely going to want to listen. It was so powerful. And this was so much fun, Ivy. I'm so glad we got to do this and chat. And I feel like a lot of people could really use this and to hear this, like to hear this truth of like who you truly are and how powerful you are, as a human being here on earth. And by the way, it's, I know we were saying when we were texting before we got on, it's 11/11, as far as the date. So it's a very powerful angelic day. And I feel like there's no coincidence in that we ended up getting on live today.
I love that. Yes, love that number. So great to be with you, Allie. Let's
Yes,
do it
you too,
again.
Abby. Definitely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Hope this encouraged everyone and inspired you. And I hope you just get curious and have awareness because you deserve it. You deserve to live your most abundant and most peaceful life.
Amen. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great
All right.
weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.